Hello, hi. This is Nishant Malhotra. Welcome for another podcast. Today, I'm going to be discussing with Surabhi Yadav, who's actually the founder and CEO of Sajhe Sapne. Middle Road is a thought leadership and online learning platform enabling social change and impact globally. We talk about Sajhe Sapne. It's a non-profit which is empowering rural women through quality education and catalyzing livelihood for the underserved section of the society. It would be a very warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Nishant. Thank you for inviting and thank you for having me here.
So we are doing a lot of fascinating work. I was in the US. I also did a development course. I went to Michigan, and this chat we are going to talk about your journey. So let's start with my first with your education, your journey. You have progressed both tremendously professionally and personally. You did your engineering and post grad the master's degree at IIT Delhi, which is one of the best engineering colleges in India. It's one of the leading colleges also around the world. And then you did your master's in development practice from University of California, Berkeley, US, which is one of the best universities in the world. Today, as a founder and CEO of Sajhe Sapne, your organization is empowering rural women in India through quality education. And you have sort of done a lot of innovative work, and we'll come to this as we go forward. So when we look at India, an overwhelming majority of India's rural population works in the unorganized sector. So kindly share your journey, highlighting the motivation in setting up your nonprofit.
I think I live in four different worlds. And I think that is what shaped Sajhe and what it is. So I grew up in a town called Khargon in Madhya Pradesh. And I lived a childhood of abundance in a sense that it was not necessarily financial abundance because we were still low income family, but it was a lot of carefree thinking, a lot of abundance of freedom of thought. Both my parents put a lot of emphasis on educating their kids. My father was the first person in his village to actually get complete schooling, actually get a government job, go to college. So the second world that I belong to is Bundelkhand, where my parents grew up.
And that's a very famous, just to get the audience, it's known for Fulan Devi. She was a very known bandit. And there's a movie also on that.
Yeah, it's known for a lot of things actually, but Bundelkhand has its own share of big problems, right? Like it is not doing great on gender indices, it's not doing great on development indices. It's a border of MP and Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh, right? And both my parents, they were phenomenal in terms of what they were aspiring for their kids and how much they were showing up for the society as well. When my father, I think a lot of motivation of how Sajhe started, why Sajhe started, is because of the kind of upbringing I had. My parents, I feel for them, social work was not a moral obligation. It was just a way of life for them. My father was in government department of horticulture, and he helped any farmer who came our way, who came to our home, every single farmer, and he still does that. And just out of sheer love for the work, sheer love for, plants, sheer love for making sure that farmers get the most out of their fields. And I grew up watching that. I also grew up listening to them telling us, we are four siblings, and telling us that तुम्हारी पढ़ाई तब काम आएगी जब गाँव के काम आए, right? And I think they were saying it because they had very strong sense of community for their own villages back home. And उनको ये लग रहा था कि because they have studied and gone away from the village, something nice should happen for the village because someone from the village was able to get the gift of education. So I grew up listening to that. कि पढ़ाई तो तभी काम आएगी when it's for अगर वो किसी गाँव के काम आए, right? So IIT, that's one part of the world. The second part of the world is the village Madhopura. Now that village is, again, strong sense of community, but also जो किताबें मुझे development issues पढ़ा रही थी, वो वहाँ पे lifestyle है, right? Like, so if you're reading, open defecation is a development challenge, but then you go back home and they're like, open defecation is how you live, right? And nobody's finding that as a problem, and that is fine too. But that is the second world that I grew up in and I belong to. Then, of course, there's IIT Delhi, which only happened because I had this deep spirit of wanting to go away from home. Nothing else. It was not love for engineering, unfortunately, at that point.
We are too young at that point of time. In India, at your time, my time, it was more of Maybe I think during my time it was engineering and medical, but things have evolved by your time. But then IIT is not that easy
Yeah.
to go. I mean, IIT is one of the most competitive exams in the world, I think.
Yeah, but you got to be a little stupid to not know that. You got to be a little, ignorant to not know that. The good thing about my town is that there was so little exposure that until 12th, I didn't even know what is IIT. And even when I got through IIT, a lot of my father's friends said, "Acha, gudiya ITI mein chali gayi hai." Like they thought that I've gone to an ITI college. Uh, because nobody knew what is IIT, right? So I had no exposure. So the only calculation that I did in my head was, oh, this is a government college. Fees is going to be low. My father and mother are never going to say no for good education. They can afford it. Probably I can go in, right? Like that was the calculation. So away from home, something that parents would be able to take care of, something that they would not say no for. Like this is a legit reason for which they will let me go out. And of course it required a lot of hard work of cracking JEE, but IIT was a big fair. IIT was a learning fair. It felt a lot of sense of possibilities. A lot was possible, and I did a lot. And I think that all the entrepreneurial drive, I think whatever goes into Sajhe comes because there was certain kind of shaping that IIT's experience did. And then of course Berkeley, right? Berkeley happened, and Berkeley instilled or fueled my sense of justice, I guess, because Berkeley has that culture. So yeah,
Just
and
just to
yeah,
sort of interrupt you, two questions. First, I think
yeah,
we should know what is the meaning of Sajhe or Sapne.
yeah,
In I know it means dreams. Sajhe
dreams.
does it
Yeah.
mean together? Is
It
it
means shared. Yeah. So the
shared dreams?
word is also Sanjha. Sanjhe means shared, and Sajhe is another word for the same thing. Is means shared. And the genesis of Sajhe Sapne is that at least
Shared dreams. Shared dreams.
yeah,
That's what I
shared
mean.
dreams. And it's not just like one person's dreams. Like when one person progresses, a lot happens in one community, ripple effects. And we also like two beliefs, right? Like one is nobody is doing it all by themselves. It's usually a team for your dreams, right? And that's a term that we also coined Sapna Dal. It's a team for your dreams. So at Sajhe, you will see there's a whole new world that we're trying to create, and that involves creating a new language. So you will see a lot of words being thrown around. Sapne wali is our, all the students that we have, all the team members we have. Sajhe Sapne, Sapna Dal, like bunch of words. So yeah, shared dreams is what Sajhe Sapne means.
Yeah.
Uh,
I just want you did your undergrad and then you did your masters also from IIT. Was there a thinking like you wanted to go in technology because you're predominantly your undergrad and postgrad were in the same discipline before you thought okay let's go to Berkeley?
no, actually, because this again the four worlds really does a difference, right? So when I'm studying at IIT, I'm seeing a certain kind of world, but then I'm going back home, I'm seeing a different world, and then I'm going back to my parents' village, I'm seeing entirely different world. And I think it does something to you, that kind of exposure, like you going from extreme sense of possibilities to seeing things in very different ways in different places. In my head, I was clear that I'm going to be in social sector. And I was clear even when I entered in IIT, I was clear when I exited IIT, right? Like when I graduated. Corporate job never excited me. I was lucky that I was there for 5 years. A lot of my friends were there for 4 years, and they graduated and they went into corporate, and I would meet them, right? Like I was still a student. They were still, they were now earning a lot of money, big packages, and they were also miserable. I'm sorry to say this out in public, but they actually were miserable. Every time I would meet them, and I would ask them, how is life going? And they would say, oh, kat rahi hai, chal rahi hai. And I never wanted to be that person. I never wanted to say that I'm just surviving. So corporate never excited me. So that was never a path that I aspired for. Tech could have been if I paid more attention to my engineering academics, right? I think I was so much in love with all the distractions that IIT had to offer. So I did a lot of theater, a lot of debating, a lot of sports, everything that IIT had to offer, except
I think
academics.
that's incredible. That's something I'm very happy to hear that. So this is something you're very well rounded. You wanted to see all aspects of life, and
Yeah.
that I think had a huge influence on you to do something which is very innovative, socially.
Yeah, but I think again the social thing was because of the family, right? Like because of what I was seeing, and it's not just what I was hearing from my parents, but also what I was seeing back home in the villages. Like I was here studying in IIT Delhi, but all my cousins are getting married at 17 and or 18. And my nieces who are much younger than me getting married at 19, and that's still 18, 19, and still it's still the reality. Education has not made a cut in our village. And I think when you see that, and when you're living this in the world of possibilities, I think for me the most logical and the most obvious response for myself was that I have to be in social sector. I don't know what I will be doing. So even at IIT, when it came to choosing projects, I did choose projects which were socially inclined. Like even I was working on a nanotech project of developing a point of care device for diagnosis of tuberculosis in villages and resource constrained areas. So it was hardcore engineering, and yet with a solid real life application in places where the needs are high. Other internships that I chose were related to social sector. So I think IIT's training was about fueling sense of possibilities that you can do it. And IIT has its ways of giving you that practice and that experience. Yeah.
IIT gave you a platform. I think it's one of the best platforms in India. I would say that.
I mean, it has, I do want to, because people are listening, I do want to put a word of caution here that I do think that academically, the cultural environment of IIT can be a lot more inclusive, both in terms of gender, caste, geography. So it needs a lot of improvement in terms of how people pursue learning and how people pursue, expression of freedom. So that way it needs to do a lot of work. But yes, it does, for whom it can work, it can create a strong sense of possibilities. I don't think it works for everyone yet, and it's not individual's fault. It's actually institutional limitation. But yes, I still am very grateful for having that platform, and it does give you a strong network, right? Like you.
Then Berkeley, and how did Berkeley then sort of make you?
Berkeley happened when I graduated from IIT. I left the placement season and I did not know what to do except that I will be entering in social sector. And because in IIT no social sector jobs come in directly, it was a self-driven exploration. And I ended up working with the professor at IIT in humanities department because he gave me that space to think, sit, and read. And I worked as a public policy researcher for a couple of years. And my plan was not to continue studying, but I felt I needed more time to organize my thoughts around development. And I felt the need of having a structure for it. And that's when I applied to Berkeley. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. I think I'm super grateful for that.
And then that led to, in Berkeley, were you not thinking of working in the US in development sector or?
No. I think I never got excited by these possibilities, I guess. Again, because the problems that I connect with are in India. The problems that I connect with are related to my experience in my own village. And I can't have that in the US. And if you want to make a dent in development sector, you need to be closer to the context of the problem. And I think in my head, I was very calculative that way. When I came to US, I was so clear that I'm going back to India. Like the plan was never to stay back in the US, because in the US, because I've not grown up here, I don't know the context as deeply as I know that of my region. And it would take me much longer to understand the problems deeply here and to come up with an effective solution than, back home. For a year, I was still exploring, figuring it out, what to do. And I think pandemic started. That made a couple of shifts in my life. And then Sajhe began in 2020, September 2020.
And so any purpose, you have headquartered it in Himachal Pradesh, not in Madhya Pradesh. Was that there is specific reason for that?
Yeah, actually, when Sajhe began, it was not planned. Again, a lot of things happened very organically. There's a village in Himachal, Kanbadi, where I am based right now and where Sajhe is based. I have been visiting that village for last 7 years, and I had gone there for the first time as a volunteer in an organization called Avishkar, which is now of our incubation center, and they've been a strong supporter of our work. I loved that village. I love the lifestyle. I love the beauty. Himachal is incredibly beautiful.
One of the most greatest, I think, states in India. It's a lovely place.
And the development indices are really amazing. I think at the beginning of the pandemic, I was at a very low stage overall in life, both professionally and personally. Was going through a lot, and the pandemic began. And at that point, I started volunteering for supporting survivors of domestic violence. And I did that for a couple of months, and then the restlessness began. What's next? And I was in clear. And because I couldn't travel because of the pandemic, the exploration was also getting more and more constrained and more just go within and instead of go outward. I came to Kanbadi just for some relief for myself. I didn't come to Kanbadi because I wanted to start an organization. I came there, and because it was lockdown, I was supposed to be just there, right? During that time, I got in touch with a young woman from a village in Bihar, and Magdampur, and she wanted to join an online education, some platform, because she just finished 12th. She was like one person in her entire village who has finished her 12th, and she really was eager to continue education, and she had no means at that point. She also belonged to Musahar Mahadalit community, where you really, in terms of development, they really haven't been served right. So I was arranging a phone for her. And now this may sound like a very small, tiny interaction, right? But it led to Sajhe. I was arranging a smartphone for her so that she can attend some online class. Because I had to reach out to her, I was talking to her friend who had a smartphone in a different village. It was Fula, and this other person's name was Santoli. And during this interaction with Fula, right, to reach to Santoli, Fula was like, Didi, aap mujhe kuch padha do. And I was like, nahi, main kuch nahi padha rahi hu abhi. And I think at some point, because I was not doing anything else substantially, I just gave in and I said, ठीक है, चलो थोड़ी बहुत क्लासेस शुरू करते हैं, है ना? और दोनों ने 12वीं खत्म किया हुआ था, दोनों ने 12th खत्म किया हुआ था. So we started classes on phone calls, not even like video calls. It was on phone calls every single day, and the girls won't let me miss it. So there were these two girls, then they invited one more of their friend, and then there was one person from my own family back home in the village. So now there are 4 लड़कियां हैं जो 12 बजे रोज फोन पे आ जाती हैं, and then we pick up one topic and then we start learning about it. That happened for like a month. There are other volunteers who joined. So now there's different kinds of subjects that are being discussed on phone. I still can't believe it that we were doing everything without any video interface. And at that point, I had mentioned to them casually that we may start a bigger center and we may call you here, right? And they were very stubborn about it. They hold on to that message. So I had said something very non-committed way, and they started asking, Didi, kab center shuru ho raha hai? When can we actually start this as a proper program? When can we meet and actually learn more? And that's how Sajhe began. That's how actually Sajhe got launched. I pitched the idea to an investor that I knew. He was really generous and kind, Manoj from Social Alpha, and he said, I'm ready to commit money for this. And the idea was simply that to open modern day curriculums and education for rural women so that they can launch their careers, and actually not just livelihood, actually growth pathways, career pathways. So not just think about only income increment, but actually think about skills, growth in skills, think about growth in, satisfaction. That was the idea, that we'll open different Satna Centers, like physical spaces in villages where people can continue education after 12th and can actually launch their careers in modern day workforce. And I think when he committed the money, and this was at the idea stage, right? We had 5 students. Because the paperwork for the money was taking longer and the girls were still asking me, Didi, center kyun nahi shuru kar rahe hain? We have to start. We ended up launching a crowdfunding campaign so that we can start the center, we can start the program. And people actually showed up for us. We raised around 26 lakhs in 3 days. And that's how first center started in Kanbadi. We started with 6 girls. Because people donated so much money, we ended up getting 25 students in the first batch. And yeah, since then,
Hear that. And also, let's go deep. You have a flagship program in management and rural development. Now, this is what I think is your flagship program, where you gain skill and provide jobs to rural women in the age of 18 and 24. Now, this is a very important segment because this is the time when you're going to an undergrad, you're forming your views. Also, you're open to employment at this stage could be very critical as you go forward. Later on, if you do or unemployed, you could, leave jobs. You have a lot of you have a lot of power because over a period of time, a lot of experience. Now, this is a very critical segment, and this is something fantastic which you are doing. Now, please speak about this groundbreaking residential program that is enabling social change and impact within the Indian ecosystem. And I'm sure within the global ecosystem, because you have a lot of technology jobs, and I'm sure women would be going and working tomorrow abroad also, or in India doing a lot of jobs.
That's the hope, right? But actually, the idea is to design an end-to-end learning and earning system that works for rural women. Okay, so when I say end-to-end, it means mobilizing young women who are keen on doing something, becoming something. Unko mobilize karna hai, and we call mobilizing sapne walis, like that's the name for all our students and anyone who has the burn in the belly and just ready to take on if they get an opportunity, right? So you mobilize, you design curriculums which can prepare you for the contemporary world. You design curriculums in local languages, you design curriculums in the context related to rural women, right? When you think about it, web development coding ka koi Hindi mein naam nahi hai. There is no term in Hindi, one regional language that we have, one of the many regional languages we have. We don't have a term in Hindi for coding, but the whole world is moving towards, let's say, internet-based or coding-based jobs. So how are you expecting a rural youth to actually, who doesn't know that language well, to become proficient in that particular job segment, right? So actually design curriculums which are relatable, which are accessible for rural women, then design a learning culture that works for rural women, right? Like, I don't think our current education system works for learning in general, but especially not for rural women, right? And then making sure, then of course there is a training part, which is the 9-month residential program that we have, in which we have 3 career tracks. First is development management. It's sort of a ripoff of, or sort of a junior program of what I studied at Berkeley. So I studied development practice, master's in development practice, and on learning or picking up skills on how to become a practitioner in development sector. So this is a baby version of that program, right? If anyone wants to become a practitioner in development sector, if you want to have those generalist skill sets of project management, the project management and office management, you'll have that, right?
Then just to interrupt you also, so you're pretty skilled. See, I think you are a graduate instructor in electives like statistics, econometrics. So these are what you did, multi-regression analysis, multivariate analysis. That's what you would have taught.
I taught them. Yeah.
So I think that's a very highly technical subject. People have a technical view that I think this mathematics and statistics and other subjects of biofor or applied economics are also very technical, because they need mathematics and you need a lot of analytical skills to also to understand that. Yeah, carry on, because those are the skills actually right now in evidence-based sector they really required. Rather than, maybe coding is not that way required within the development sector, but you have more mathematical skills, which is what the world is moving for.
I would say not even mathematical, I would say just the analytical skills.
Analytical skills, right?
Yeah, I think that
applied skills, like to understand.
Yeah, right. So the first career track that we have is development management. The second career track that we have is primary math teaching. So they actually... students who are enrolled in that particular program become math facilitators and math teachers. And then the third one is web development. So this is just a start, right? Like, we have 3 career tracks open, like new career tracks open for rural women. We want to make many such tracks. Like, when you enter in a big university, you have so many departments and courses to choose from. We want to make sure that rural women have that option. If someone wants to do a course in photography, at some point we need to have that course. Someone wants to do a course in journalism, at some point she needs to have that. So we started by development management. Right now we have 3. Who never knows? We don't know in 10 years how many more career tracks we would have for them. And then the last stage of the whole program is, so So you start by mobilizing, you design the curriculum and the learning culture, you deliver the training, right, in that space, the Sapna Center, where women come together, they stay there with us and, go through this whole experience, learning experience. And the last stage, or not the last stage, the fourth stage is helping them have access to professional opportunities and professional networks so that they can get a job for themselves. We do that, and then the last stage is sort of creating this peer network of professionals in rural India. And right now that's happening, like them leaning onto each other, helping each other out with their professional issues and beyond. So this whole chain, like, is sort of designing an option of pursuing high growth based aspirational jobs. That's what the vision is, that's what the aim is.
Okay, but so I need to come to a very important question, and but need to share a statistic here. About 65% of the Indian population resides in rural area. It will be a bit less than this, which, and with a literacy rate of 73.5% as of 2021. Now, this literacy rate also, maybe what in India it means is that you can write your name. That's what I feel. That's what it could be, the literacy rate. I'm not sure how they sort of measure that. However,
It's
we know
not
that
very thorough. Nishant, you're right. The way we measure literacy, it's not very thorough. And also, like Asar survey have again
yeah,
and
yeah.
again proved that, just because you're going to eighth standard doesn't mean you can actually read the text of eighth standards. And people, think about it, people don't have experience of practicing reading and writing back at home. So even just because you went to school and you're able to sign your name doesn't mean you actually have
Any
uh,
understanding of.
yeah,
You're true.
exactly.
Acer, I wanted to actually, I didn't put up the question. Yeah, but the Acer findings were really not good. I mean, we can,
Yeah.
yeah. So the quality of education is not good, but the Indian government has some initiatives. For example, Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalaya or Beti Bachao Beti Padhao. I think this is one of the best initiatives I've known, and digital initiatives that facilitate education for women. Today, if you see, as compared to maybe 10 years back, it's much more easier still for somebody to learn because of the proliferation of technology or internet. And Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, this is one of the core themes. This is a very important, I would say, initiative, which even the middle road, as I promote. Now, how do you think these policies are bettering your organization's mission and vision? How they are
Um,
impacting?
One is, of course, through the ecosystem building, right? Because if the government says that, oh, we prioritize this, and it becomes easier to build on that narrative, right? Like, okay, this is important as a nation building effort, so this, let's move in that direction. So of course there is an ecosystem building. So that means that the funders are interested in this cause, that means other stakeholders are paying attention to this cause. So that's at the primary level, right? And government recognizing something as a problem. And again, I do think that a lot of government efforts are towards and even non-profit efforts are towards school education. We are actually in a domain where not much is being done at the moment. People are wanting to do it, but not much is going on in India on that domain, which is the after school,
Yeah,
right? Like
higher
once they've,
education. Yeah, you're
yeah.
right.
And for women, it is still a struggle in villages to actually finish 12th standard. So I understand when government and nonprofits prioritize school education, school enrollment, school high quality, right, learning outcomes. Um, but I think so. One is fundamental at the ecosystem level, that it's good that the government is putting an effort on recognizing this as a domain, put a narrative on it, put resources in it. The second level, which I think would happen in near future for Sajhe, which we have not leveraged on yet, is actually to use government strengths and complement government strengths and go as a team. So we are good at designing content, designing curriculum, making things work for rural women. Government is fantastic at outreach and infrastructure. So there should come a point, right, when we are saying that Satna centers are being opened because of government. Like प्राथमिक विद्यालय हर जगह हर गांव में है ना. Like it happened because there was an effort put in that direction by different stakeholders and government was one of them. So the next should be a chain of Sapna centers in different villages with the support of government authorities, right? Government can pull that off, right? But like it will take much more effort for us to pull that off than the government, right? So that's going to be the second level which going to happen. The third level, which is a bigger aspiration level, and I think that's a long-term game for Sajhe, is advocacy, like the policy advocacy. How can we design schemes and policy policies that make education and growth of rural women a matter of pride for everyone, especially socially, especially for families. Like, we take a lot of pride and obligation for getting married, right? Like, ladki hai, shadi ho jayegi, अच्छे से शादी होगी, that is a matter of pride for us. How can that shift to, अरे मेरी बेटी अब ये करती है, right? मेरी बेटी ये बन गई है. We don't have that yet. And I think that will require a big policy level advocacy. And I think slowly we want to head towards that. Even some policy level so there are 3 levels of advocacy. There is a level advocacy for learning systems, there is an advocacy for earning systems, and then the advocacy for being, right? Like agency and how do we express our freedoms and experience them. So yeah, those are the 3 things that I feel that's where policy and governance systems come and play. But it's important for government to keep talking about these. Yeah.
That's one. At least that's a start. We
Yeah,
can say
that's a
we have
start.
that start with the
Absolutely.
emphasis.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you're right in higher education. For example, my startup is one of the first startups, I think, in India, which was a social impact startup where I was giving education, which maybe people, go to top management institutes or masters in finance. They go abroad, they sort of get that education. And for 2 years, most it was free. But then I give out highly subsidized. But in your case, you are actually at a very grassroots level, which is not exactly what the sort of mode which I've taken, which I would go on in a different way. So you have a lot of impediments, a lot of challenges, and it's not easy, like you said, to change the mindset. I mean, it's not a person or one or any actors. It's a global actors, multiple actors to work across.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What were the challenges here which you would like to discuss, and you could talk about the roadblocks, impediments, and the steps which you have taken toward anything qualitative will be very grateful, because it gives you very good insight of what's happening.
Yeah. More than challenges, Sajhe had a very soft landing, Nishant, actually. So how can I share some successes and then challenges? Are you open to
Yeah,
that?
sure. Please feel free. This is your platform. Whatever you want.
Yeah, I think so. As I said, Sapna Dal is a set of people. It's a team for your dreams. It's a set of people who are very excited when you grow. Okay, and I think each one of us need that. I think where I lucked out, I think I had very strong Sapna Dal for myself. So I genuinely met and nurtured like this relationships in my life who supported me when I was struggling the most. So Sajhe, when it started with this set of volunteers who were ready to show up and say ki chalo karte hain kuch, right? There was a set of advisors who were ready to support me on almost on every single day basis. And these are like experienced people, seasoned people in development sector. And then there were people who were ready to give us the money, right? Individuals who gave us the money. So when Sajhe started, for example, we have such a beautiful campus in the hills, and for a young organization like us, who right from day one we have had that campus, and that wouldn't have happened if Avishkar, this non-profit, or the founders of the non-profit didn't take a bet on me, right? So they said, you want to start something, start right on this campus, and we're going to support you, right? So they've seen me cry, they've seen me struggle, they've seen me, they've seen me go through all phases, and they've been there. So now they're like kind of, your rock, that okay, you can reach out to these people. So in that sense, it had been a good soft landing. But in terms of challenges, I think the one big challenge is you're working with an age group, because we're working with 18 plus. So there is a strong sense of identity and ego and wants that young adults have, as they should. But it's also a lot of struggles that they have seen in their own lives. So you're not just working with a student who doesn't have like a big trauma in their past. So that is there. So that people have seen difficult experiences, and and so how do you design a learning system that can cater to those needs? That is one big challenge, and I think we're still working on it. We're still finding out our best solutions, effective solutions. For example, first year we had a student from, she was a daughter of a sex worker, and she had left school at the age of 13. So when she came to us at the age of 22, it had been long since she had actually studied. And when she came, she got this peer group with whom she can chill, she can joke about, she was not being judged. But it was so hard for her to actually sit and study. It was just so hard. And she had a therapy support, she had, peer support, she had us as facilitators and everything, but it was just hard. It was hard, and she also didn't see that it could change, and she dropped out of the program, right?
So you have a
And
therapy sessions also. You have psychologists
no,
and all that.
so we don't, unfortunately. What we do is that create community resilience. So we do have certain principles that we follow that help us make more resilient community space. But at the moment, we don't have a therapist. But this person had a therapist from their previous organization. So they had therapy support. She had therapy support.
What do you think should have been done for her? Or why did she fall? Why could she not connect? Because of the experiences, she could not. You think she'll not be able to lead her?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she'd lived, she'd seen a lot in that sense. And also, how do you trust that? Think about it. For us, like, let's say people who have been living in cities, people who are in middle class going to colleges, they have so much exposure. It's just given that you're going to, get college education, and hopefully you're going to get a company and a job. For you to not think that, you have to put in an effort, right? When, let's say, if Nishant says, oh, I'm not going to take a job, I'm going to do this, he has to think hard to not see that. When you don't have that kind of exposure, for a lot of our students, like, for example, they don't have an aspiration, they don't have I wouldn't say aspiration, they don't have a visual. They can have a growth path for themselves. They don't even have a visual. They're not seeing that around them. For example, a student of ours, she comes from a village in Rajasthan, from a Muslim family, and she got her marriage got fixed when she was 2 years old. So at the 5 years of age, she knew who she's getting married to. So she grew up as a young girl, as a kid, she grew up thinking, this is the boy I'm going to get married to. So when she came to us, she was a newly married woman. She came 2 months after her marriage and had an incredible support by one of her in-laws. So when she came, she didn't even know what this path is going to look like. I'll give you another example. One of our students gave an interview for a very prestigious fellowship in the development sector. And it was a paid fellowship, 25,000 per month. And she reached to the 4th stage of the interview, right? And she told me that she got selected. And she told all of us she got selected. And I said, okay. So we started celebrating, right? Like, there was a whole celebration. That was the first job and all of that. Just to find out 2 days later that she's not been selected. She got a rejection email. What she misunderstood was that 4th round of interview means you got selected, because this is the first time in life she's actually going through an interview process. And she couldn't, it was surprising for her that there are 4 rounds of interviews that are required, or 4 stages of selection. Like, 1 round was pre-work and all that. But that's the level of difference in world I'm talking about. We have so much exposure of these things that we start taking them for granted. A lot of people don't have that exposure, and especially rural women. Like, think about what is the story that is being served to you as a girl, as a woman, if you're growing up in a village, and even in cities for that matter. A lot of time the emphasis is you have to get married right. That's the emphasis. The emphasis is not that, oh, what else are you going to become? With our students, nobody, when they were growing up, they were asked, what do you want to become when you grow up? This question is missing from their lives. So then that brings to the second challenge, right? We don't know how rural women, we as a country don't know how rural women actually learn. What do they enjoy? What are their interests? So, being thorough about And that kind of program design is still, is quite a lot of work. The strategic challenges of building an organization in a village that stay, they pop up, like really getting good, talented, motivated people, come in team to come commit for deep work that is required. That is one challenge. Financial sustainability is going to be a good challenge because we do have money thanks to crowdfunding. Both the years we have done crowdfunding, but how long would that last? So money is going to be a challenge. I wish, like, there are so many more ideas that we have, but we have less resources to actually convert all those ideas. So that is one of the biggest challenges that we have. Like, if someone gives us a lot of money, or we have like that financial robustness, I think we would be able to do a lot more.
Yeah, I think you talked about Muslim. One of the first women I ever fell in love with was actually a Muslim girl. So there's a long time back. But yeah, that does happen. So now let's come to your organization has an applied learning structure where you educate youth on employability skills. There are about 1.26 million schools in rural sector, which is out of 1.51 million schools in India. Now, although I'm sure I shared a chart for this, but I think for a podcast, it's better to sort of take the figures. Talking about, or the graph is basically distribution of children enrolled in schools across rural India in 2019 by type, based on data shared by Statista. Now, according to the data, 8.4% of the students are not enrolled in any institutions. Private schools are the largest segment, which is a bit more than one third at about 37.3%, followed by Anganwadi, and we'll discuss what an Anganwadi is, at 27.6%, and government schools at 23.9%. Now, government preschool is at 2.8%. Now, when you do talk, first let's understand Anganwadi is, and you will be the best person to take through, and then you can talk for setting up educational centers in India. I mean,
so Anganwadis are far from our world, by the way. In a sense that, again, Anganwadi work with kids. Like, that's the premise, right? Like, Anganwadi is a space, government run spaces where you can bring children in. So they enter in the education system through Anganwadis, right? They also get nutrition through Anganwadi. So Anganwadi serves like a multi-purpose service center for kids, primarily kids in the villages. We are on the other side of the spectrum. We are saying once you're done with your schooling, then we enter. So I'm going to talk about Satna Centers. Satna Centers are physical spaces where young women can come together, learn, play, ask a lot of questions, pick up new skills that they can apply in job market, or open something of their own. So learn, play, network, ask questions, pick up new skills, get yourself a good job, or start yourself something, and decide how are you going to actually keep growing. Sapna centers are supposed to be places which facilitate a person's growth in 5 ways. So the way we define it is that there should be increase in skills, there should be increase in salary, there should be increase in satisfaction, there should be increase in support, and what did I say? Skill, and there should be increase in say, like your agency, right? If that is not increasing all these 5, then that means something is lacking. For example, in India, we have in the skill development sector this papad pickle development model, right? In rural India, for a lot of rural women, the options that we have given for livelihood is make papads, make pickles, make products, and nothing wrong with those professions, right? Like, or become beautician, or silai kadai bunai, be a tailor, like have a sewing center, right? Nothing wrong with those professions, except are they offering growth? If a person becomes a tailor at the in year 1 and year 5, have their business grown, have their sense of satisfaction grown, have their skills grown, right? Nobody's like, we got to think about that. Because when you and I are making our career decisions, we have like so many factors that we want to consider for ourselves. It's not always just tiny income increment that we are considering, right? So for us, Sapna Centers should facilitate those growth pathways using these 5 things. So when you ask about business model, currently we're still figuring it out. Currently, the way it works, center is working is students come in for the until they get the job, they don't have to pay anything. So their food and rent and stay and education is taken care by us financially. But once they graduate, we hope that they are going to teach one. Each one teach one. So they're going to basically mentor one student, but also start paying forward the expenses that were spent on them from their salary. So hoping that every Sapna Center can become self-sustaining in like 3 years.
Okay, so right now you're working for grants. Have you looked at some sort of other sponsorship? For example, you talked about, not this could be an idea for your business model. Have you thought about public-private partnerships, CSR strategies that
Oh yeah, of
organizing?
course. Yeah, I mean those are the mainstream ones in development sector nonetheless. And so grants, CSR, government partnerships, all of that is going to be part of the work. And that, I mean, that's just sort of given in a sense that whoever is interested in working in this domain, we are very keen on partnering and joining hands, because that's how it's going to go forward, right? We are not yet fully eligible for CSR because we're still not 3 years old. But yeah, we would be doing that as well. Yeah. And I think the ideal is to actually get into a government system, right? Like existing government infrastructure. So we become the program partners and government becomes our, infrastructure and space partner. And that would be fantastic. Yeah.
So when you're talking about government, how will you perceive government's involvement as? Would it strictly come in PPP, public-private partnership? Because government will be public, right? And you as a non-profit,
Yeah.
you'll consider yourself also public? You'll not be a
I
private, surely, right? Hybrid structure somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in this case, PPP would work as like you have a CSR partner, you have a government partner, and us. But it doesn't have to be a framework like this, right? Like what you could do is that um, government has, for example, a lot of ITIs, but no ITI is in a village, right? Like most ITIs are away from villages or they're in big villages. So one option could be the nearest ITI has a course run by us, right? So we become the program partners with government. Now either the government can fund that or a CSR partner can fund that. So that could be one model. Other model is there are existing physical spaces in villages that are being underutilized at the moment. So again, something that government says that, oh, you can use that space. We bring in a CSR partner, they fund, government provides the space, we do the program implementation. So these are a couple of options that I think could work out. Yeah.
Discussed before, you worked as a graduate student instructor teaching highly competitive subjects, example, electives. It was in econometrics, statistics, all various aspects of a lot of different subjects within the development sector at Berkeley. Now, like I already discussed, one of the best universities in the world. Now, your team is highly qualified with work experience in consulting and education development institutes. Example, Teach for India. Now, looking at your organization's team superlative qualifications, share how you bring out a quality-backed pedagogy towards learning, because that is where your key differentiator is, you and your team. And it's you're very highly qualified, so that's where you come in and where you can change or do things very differently.
So it's not just team, but like people from really reputed institutions, educational institutions, but also our students, because we are co-creating this program with them, and bunch of our alumni are part of our team now. So well, maybe from reputed education institution, Sajhe Sapne. So it's a balancing act. So when you have a skilled, the people coming from Teach for India consulting background, Infosys system engineering background and all of that, they are bringing a certain kind of skill set, and so are the students who are coming from different villages and alumni from Sajhe Sapne. They are bringing different skill sets. So it's a combination of both, and we can't let go either. Actually, the focus is on that the learning experience should be a freeing experience. It shouldn't be a constraining experience. So that is a philosophy, right? And of course, Avishkar plays a big role in helping us, focus on that kind of pedagogy. Couple of things. for example, simple things like this. Like we don't have table and chairs in our classrooms and in our sessions. Everyone sits in a circle, right? Now this is a pedagogy tool. It's a pedagogy tool to say everyone should be able to see each other's faces, and there is no hierarchy in the classroom's physical setup. So वो बैक बेंचर और फ्रंट बेंचर्स और मिड बेंचर्स का कोई स्टीरियोटाइप नहीं है ना? So there is a circle, right?
I was always a perpetual
There is a tool
backbencher. Just to interrupt you. I thought I just remembered because you
I
spoke
I
and
wish you had a circle, so then you don't have to be a backbencher, you know. There are many pedagogy tools that we have. So I'm just gonna keep giving you examples so that you can understand what do I mean when I say learning should be freeing. So then there's the set of values that your a character building has to have certain values, right? So we have like sachi pakki gudi jununi dil ki, and so and we're not just going to say these for the sake of saying them. We actually bring our conversation back to the values. So let's say there is a conflict that happens among students, right? The first question that will be asked is which value that we want to exhibit is challenged here, right? Or if something that some major disagreement happens, some other stuff happens, the conversation goes back to which value is being challenged, right? And our students start talking in that terms, which is fantastic, right? Then the third thing, another tool is glow and grow, which is like a feedback, right? Like kahan chamke, kahan dhamke, right? What are the things that are really going well? What are the things that we still can improve, right? So every student is able to give glow, and it's not only facilitators giving glow and grow to students, it's students giving glow and grow to facilitators as well. And it becomes so common in the set. I remember I was making a fundraising presentation one day, and I told my students that I have a big presentation coming up, so don't disturb me today, I have to just focus. And they yelled back saying, हाँ दीदी जब आपका पूरा presentation बन जाए तो हमको बता देना, हम glow and grow दे देंगे. And they actually gave me feedback on my fundraising deck. And I think that's the shift that happens in 9 months. Other simple thing that we do is another pedagogy tool is that the questions first. So basically framing challenges with curiosity. So if you have a problem, mostly they just say it as मेरे साथ ये बुरा हो रहा है, right? So how can we frame that as a question? And once the question is framed, then you start thinking about the solution, right? So that's another tool. So we have so many pedagogy tools which are around breaking the hierarchy that exists between a facilitator and a student, being very aware about that power dynamic. And another big one is like really deeply trusting the potential of the student, like deeply trusting that they can be more. And part of the big problem in education sector and skill development sector is that we don't trust the potential of rural women. Itni sari edtech solutions popped up during COVID with very few for rural youth. That's not a money problem, and that's not a, like solution problem. It's actually the problem that we don't think that they can manage such a high quality product. We don't think that there is a set of community who needs it, right? So truly deeply believing the potential of rural women, because that helps us set the bar high for what we create for them. So for example, when I am designing the program of development management, I'm still talking about big concepts like stakeholder management, survey design, right? We talk about caste, gender, social structures. Nobody is dumbing down the concept, because our students deserve really high quality stuff. How can we simplify it? How can we make it accessible, right? Like that's where a lot of creativity goes in. So yeah, those were some of the examples of pedagogy. We deeply believe in what Ferrari had said about that, in his book on pedagogy of the oppressed, that your students are not empty bank accounts. Yeah, there's a mutual learning process that's happening between the teacher and the student, and we really mean that. We show up that way. So yeah,
which book you
I
talked
hope that
about? Sorry to interrupt you. You talked about a book.
it's a pedagogy of the oppressed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
It's one of the pioneer works in education as freeing. Yeah.
Thinking, it's also, do you make your own education content? From what I understand, you will have your own curriculum design, and
yes.
right. So
I don't know, by education content we're not again, we are not coming up with absolutely new concepts. These are all concepts that exist outside. For example, in computer, if they're learning Python or they're learning, React, there is enough that is out there. So it's not like the curriculum is not like, as in, what the topics are not new. Topics are what is already been out there. But how we teach them, how do we deliver them, those are new. Those are in-house, yes. And
You
also
talked
we
about,
have
okay.
organizations. Yeah.
So how many students do you have in these batch?
Yeah. So last year we had the first batch, we had around 25 students and they all graduated. This time we have 30. We had more, but we had dropouts as well because of, travel restrictions being lifted up. So right now there are 30 young women from 7 different states. Yeah.
Okay, and so when you talk about the tracks, one, of course, I understand is technology, where you're teaching, front end development, and which will come about web development, which you teach. The second, is there any other track? You talked, there were 4 tracks, right?
Three. So there is development management, there
Okay,
is primary math teaching, and there is web development. Yeah.
so
So
you're
it's
teaching
Umang,
mathematics,
Arohan, and Taran. Yeah.
and in development sector, it's more of both qualitative and which you're sort of teaching, right?
So for 3 of the tracks, all 3 of them, let me tell you the curriculum. So there are 4 pillars in each curriculum, in each career track. First one is English, just sab mein hoga. It's common in all 4. Second one is career intelligence, so negotiation, networking, professionalism, time management, all of that, email writing, everything comes under. Digital literacy comes under career intelligence, like all the things that you need to go in any kind of workforce, right? So that is also common in all career tracks. Third one is self and society, where you understand your own self a little bit better and also understand your positioning in the society better and your role to make the society better. That is again common in all 3 tracks. So these 3 are common in all 3. Then the fourth one is the specialized skill set. So if you're in a primary math teaching course, this one is going to be child psychology and math concepts, right? If you're in development management, this one is going to be about management and social issues. If you're in web development, specialized skill set is going to be about your front end web development. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have 4 pillars in each curriculum. Yeah.
I've already spoken about front-end web development. That was one of my questions. Just to sort of add on, since you talked about technology, what sort of infrastructure do you have? I mean, you have some computers. As I understand, you work on first grants from the government and from for foundations, and you have Avishkar as one of your incubators. It's incubated.
We don't have any government grants yet.
Okay.
We have crowdfunding money, so a lot of money given by individuals. We have grant from Tata Trust, and we had grant from Prabha and Nudge. So private grant making organizations. We have grants from them. We have Avishkar's infrastructure support. So we have a campus, very beautiful campus in the hills, and very open space to play around and to have classes in nature. We definitely have digital infrastructure, so there are laptops and desktops. We don't have enough. We definitely want more. So yeah, those are the infrastructure. So you have places to sit and have long sessions. So physical space for that, we have that, and then we also have hostels for our students to come and stay with us for 9 months.
Now you also have taken something known as going forward, where I came to know I'd applied for set up a job posting, and that's how I came to know through Ekta about your non-profit. Now, how do you make that students get a job? Do you have you tied up with companies in India, or you reach out? I know very proactively you reach out to the company.
It's a mix. Yeah, it's a mix of everything. So we want our students to be able to do the research and actually reach out and actually apply and get the job all by themselves, because that is the kind of confidence and skill sets we want them to have, so that even after their first job, they're able to do more. They're able to find more jobs for themselves even when they leave Sajhe. So part of it is in the training. So the internships are, for example, an integral part of our their learning experience. So bunch of organizations we reach out, bunch of times we just tell them how are we reaching out, you can also start doing that. So we help them get subscribed to, like for example, we help them go on LinkedIn, right? We help them subscribe to various Google groups where opportunities are coming in. We help them how we help them on their research skills for job opportunities. We also send them to various exposure trips, so field trips, workshops in other organizations, so that they start meeting other professionals and start networking, right? And we encourage them to make their own Sapna Dal. So we encourage them to actually invite more people in their team of dreams, right? So that they can start talking about opportunities and not just wait for us to give them an opportunity in front of them. But yes, a big part of our work is also reaching out to organizations and see who has the interest in making their own team much more diverse, and welcoming, talent from a different pool. And that it's a mix of both. Yeah.
We come to the last question. So, Surabhi, thanks a lot. First, I want to really thank you. You took out time. You're right now in the US, but still we are able to have a chat. And I am very happy that you accepted the invitation. And I'm happy that you're doing something which is actually really required. We call it market failures, wherein you have to, outside actors have to come in and, so sort of, that's where the government sector comes in, and you have foundations, and now even a lot of social entrepreneurs are coming in. Through your journey, you spoke about a lot of experiences. Do finally speak about an aha moment. This is generally the last question from the middle road. I always ask everybody, unless they don't want to answer this question. So do speak about any aha moment from your experience at your nonprofit, at Sajhe Sapne, or you could speak from whatever interactions you had with people or students.
Oh, it's going to be a hard one. There are so many aha moments. Can I take a moment to think?
It's a tough question, actually.
It's a tough question to select from, because
which one to select? Which experience would you say is the?
Yeah, and I think feeling wise, I know there's so many aha moments, but I'm just thinking that which one anecdotally I can bring it up. And this is during work, right? So one of the things that we say that we want our students to have more agency, right? Like we want them to claim their agency. One of the alumni, she messaged me one day saying she wants to leave the job that she's in right now, and she comes from a family of five sisters, an alcoholic father, mother working as a tea laborer in a tea garden. So my head is thinking, oh my God, she's not thinking it right. She's getting a consistent salary right now. It's a very reputed organization. She shouldn't leave the job. So that's what my head is going, right? And my head is also worrying that she's not doing some long-term thinking. Why is she leaving this job? And so I don't bring all my opinions in there. I just ask her, why do you want to leave this? And she told me about how the work environment is very toxic, and it's very discouraging on a regular level basis to go to that workplace. And then she kept saying it, right? She kept building on it. And I asked her, okay, so what are you going to do next? And she said, I don't know, but what I know right now is that I want to leave this job, and I know I will figure something out. And I think to me, that was just to hear her say that I know I will do something, just instead of me thinking of it as, oh my God, she's doing such a wrong thing. One, she's actually claiming agency, right? To be able to say no is what we want for our students to have, right? Like to be able to say no to something that doesn't work for them. That is a marker of someone having their own agency. And she is saying no for a shitty job, which is great. And the two, that agency is being supported by sense of possibilities, which was not there when she started. Because a lot of students, because they have lived in intergenerational poverty, they come with a scarcity mindset. They don't think that this is also possible. This is also possible. And here she is, and she's saying, "Mujhe nahi pata main kya karungi, but kuch kar lungi." And to me, that was a reminder to have more faith in my students. And it's like, that's what claiming agency looks like. And I think that reframing was quite an aha moment for me. There was a similar one another time where a student lost her job because an alumni lost her job because there was pandemic in the nonprofit she was working in, couldn't raise the money. People were laid off. And she was one of them. And 3 days before she got laid off, she was telling me about that she's saving money to build a bigger hut in for her family. And now she got laid off, and I messaged her asking, okay, so how are you feeling? And she said, I'm feeling very sad and worried, but I know I will do something. And 2 days later, her updated resume was in my WhatsApp. She asked me that, Didi, how is this looking? And that was again a very moment full of gratitude, but also an aha moment that I got to truly, like the thing that we keep saying, that shift the narrative about rural women from pain to their potential. And I think my students keep proving it over and over, like keep expanding the radius of what I see as their potential. I think if I was in her position and got laid off in the middle of pandemic while I was saving money for building my house, I think I would have been flustered. And there she was. She sent me an updated resume in 2 days. And she's doing well now. So yeah, these are like very clear aha moments, which make me want to see more and also build more. So yeah, I hope that counts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I mean, I really appreciate. I'll just, thanks, for sharing a lot of time. I think you spoke with your heart, very, very emotional, and I think you're very highly motivated. This something. So it's very good that you found something you wanted to do. Many people don't even find what they really want to do in life. So I think that's the story which I think attracted me, that I should outreach you. That's what's the story I saw when I looked at your profile, and I'm really appreciate joining the Middle Road for the podcast. Just to sort of give you, the Middle Road fuses edtech with media on outreach. You do check out www.themiddleroad.org. Just to take a reference, I had referred a lot of data of iber.org, so you could look at it. The other, of course, for Sajhe Sapne, I referred to their website, www.sajhesapne.org. So these are the two sites you must go and see in whatever way you could help. So thanks a lot, Surabhi. I really appreciate giving time.
Yeah, and great questions. Thank you for doing the homework that usually it takes to ask really nice questions. Thank you so much, and I'd look forward to hearing the episode. And yeah, I would circulate it in our networks as well. Thank you.
I really appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah.